All right, welcome to the second part of our Innistrad Crimson Vow set review. Leading off with white here, commons, then uncommons, then rares. Ordering them in mana value, so that's going to start us off with Piercing Light. So a single white for an instant. It deals 2 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. Aha, scry 1. Move over,
Yeah.
Righteous Blow.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen this little guy. Eh?
Mm-hmm.
This like similar, white deal damage to a small attacking creature.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about these cards in general?
I generally don't like them.
Yeah, I would say so too. There's some contextual factors sometimes. If more aggressive formats are more conducive to this type of card. There's been times where we're like, it's actually a pretty fast format. You do actually want this cheap interaction, but it's not like a bread and butter white removal spell. It does get better post board if you're playing best of 3 for sure.
Sure. But we've probably explained why. Generally, white is aggressive, and these effects are bad when you are an aggressor because your non-creature spells, you want to be removing blockers.
Yes.
And then just tacked on that, like, dealing 2 gets outclassed pretty quickly. Shocks and frostbites in the past have not in the past, but in the recent past have not, they're fine. Like, even though the stats show like, hey, this is 2 toughness, that's half the creatures are common or uncommon, and so the deal 2, it's just like these cards are often whatever.
Yeah, it does get better if you're playing a white controlling-ish color. Black white might want this a little bit more. Maybe blue white has slightly more slower bent to it in some builds. But yeah, this is like a D plus level card essentially.
Yep, agreed.
All right, next up, this is. I was gonna say I'm excited to talk about this one, but that comes to no surprise. No surprise to anybody because this is a white 1-drop. So this is Traveling Minister. It's white for a 1/1 human cleric. Tap. Target creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn. You gain 1 life. Activate only as a sorcery.
Talk to me, baby.
Yeah, it's weird. So this is kind of a interesting effect. We've never really seen a card that does something, we've seen cards that gain life like this, but also give the pump ability. So essentially, this is good for your life gain decks, right? Just like triggers all your life gain each turn. But it also like pumps your flyers, right? Or pumps your ground creature to attack past their, pumps your 3/3 to attack past their 3/4 or whatever. So I think this actually just like does enough little things that it's actually going to be a decent role player. You can almost think of it like, if you put this on a flyer, if you pump a flyer, it's almost like a tap to drain 1, essentially, right? You gain 1, they lose 1.
That's quite good.
So yeah, I don't think this is going to be like Lunark veteran level or any no, maybe even Anointed Chorister as a kind of similar-ish card. But I think this is going to be a role player in some decks, like both the life gain decks and a deck that just like has cheap evasive creatures. Even if you don't have evasive creatures, like I was saying, it helps your ground creatures attack past the bigger ground creatures. So I'm kind of into this. I think this is like a C in the decks that want it.
Yeah, so I was gonna say Synergy C.
Sweet. All right, what's up next?
Unholy Officiant. Single white for a 1/2 vampire cleric with vigilance, and it has an activated ability of 4 and a white to put a +1/+1 counter on itself.
Not as excited about this one. So it's just like, if there was a lot of natural ways to put counters on things in this set, which there are a few, don't get me wrong, I'd be more interested in this because it's like a cheap body that you can suit up. Maybe the idea of this is for the blue-white deck, where it's like a cheap body that, you
where's Aura as well.
Stat,
yeah.
And it's just like, you have an ability that you can augment with this creature gets flying, this creature gets double strike, and then eventually it gets bigger. Maybe that's what this card's trying to do, right? But in a vacuum, it's not a inherently powerful card by any means. So I can see this having a home actually, but it's more going to be like contextual. I have a flying aura. My disturbed creature has a flying aura on the back, and I can slap it on this, and this is my Voltron creature I'm going to town with. But I'm sure you can probably just find other things to do to put that on as well.
Yeah, right. Like, it's just like, that's sort of the thing about Disturb is like Disturb begets Disturb, and it doesn't need, it's not like, oh man, now I just need to find a creature to put these auras on. It's like, exactly. No, you have them.
Yeah, your deck is chock full of creatures.
Yes, I guess I'm going to start off at D+ here.
Yeah, I'm going to start there too. Keeping my eye on this one because this is, the type of card that might sneak up on us eventually. But I'm not going to start high on this one, even with my affinity for these type of cards.
Right.
All right, next up we've got Adamant Wheel. We've got a reprint here. So this is 1 and a white for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+2 and gains indestructible till end of turn.
Back in the heyday, back in Dominaria, this card did work.
Yeah,
This
we
was
walked to school both ways, uphill both ways.
the king of double spelling. Now this is fine. This is not exciting or a priority, I think.
Yeah, it's gonna win a combat. I mean, it kind of helps you win the combats when you're trying to get a counter on your training creatures. Maybe you don't have the best attack with that training creature because they start up pretty small. This says, okay, I win the combat. My counter stays around. Solid role player. Nothing too special. I don't think. It is nice that this just does double duty as like a protection spell against removal, but I think just a filler combat trek C minus D plus level.
Yeah, C minus sounds good to me. Next is Fierce Retribution. This is 1 and a white for an instant. Ooh, here's some cleave action. Do you want to try what was suggested in the Lord's Limited Discord?
You read some.
So I'm gonna read. Your brackets. Okay.
Okay.
So Fierce Retribution is 1 and a white, or the cleave cost is 5 and a white, and it says destroy target
attacking
creature.
So hokey.
Yeah, that doesn't really work. Okay, so
we'll find something.
We'll figure out something.
We'll be pioneers.
We gotta
content pioneers here.
So 2 mana destroy target attacking creature, 6 mana destroy target creature.
And that's probably the cleanest way to do it.
Well, but this has 4 words on it. Like some cards have like a block of text.
Yeah. So 2 mana destroy an attacking creature. Strictly an defensive thing, right? You don't want this rotting in your hand as the aggressive deck. That's also great. The modality of this is sort of interesting though. So we saw Here's Something on Watch. You hear something on Watch in the D&D set where that was a card that I was kind of okay playing in my aggressive decks because when you're in those like racing situations against other aggressive decks, you can use it as a removal spell. And then when you're not facing an aggressive deck, you're facing like the green blue deck that's just like sitting back doing nothing, not attacking you. You give your creatures +1/+1. This has a little bit of those vibes, but the other mode is, pretty expensive.
Yeah, I kind of like this card.
Yeah, I'm kind of into it too. I think it is definitely better than the deal 2, the 1 mana deal 2 we saw a little while ago. Yeah, I could see this card actually overperforming quite a bit. What do you like for this card?
I think I'm just gonna start it at a C.
Yeah, I think it's reasonable.
But I could see, and it's the kind of card where I think, though, if there's a, I don't know, maybe white, black is just lifelink, turtle up, whatever.
Yeah.
Because in the venture white, black dungeon decks in AFR, you play as many You Hear Something on Watches as you possibly get your hands on because it was a 2 mana removal spell. So if there is a defensive white deck, it's very interested in this, and I don't think the copies will diminish. In other kinds of white decks, I think there are going to be diminishing returns here, but I could see maybe even the first copy is like a C+, and then it's like, and then the next one is a C, C-, whatever.
And in general, the more flyers you have, the better these get, right? Because you don't care about, you can just attack in the air and they attack you back. They can't race. Well, they're going to try to race you on the ground and you go, kill your 4/4. So, yeah, definitely has a place. All right, next up, we've got Nurturing Presence. So this is 1 and a white for an enchantment. It's an aura. It's an enchant creature. Enchanted creature has, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, this creature gets +1/+1 till end of turn. And it also says, when Nurturing Presence enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying.
So it's a 2 mana 1/1 flyer with this ability of another creature ETBing, giving it +1/+1. That doesn't seem very good to me.
Yeah, so I think it's the best way to look at it, where it's just like it's a 1/1 flyer. I kind of like this card, actually. So it's like a 1/1 flyer that boosts something else up by 1 the turn it comes in, right? It'll attack for 1 more because you have the spirit coming in. And then, the thing you've enchanted threatens to attack for 1 or 2 more each turn past that. It's definitely a synergy card, right? It's either, you're a really aggressive deck or you're the deck that really cares about enchantments. You're the disturb deck and you care about auraing up your stuff. There are things that care about enchantments, care about putting auras on stuff. So not a generically good card you're going to want to put in all of your decks, I don't think. Not again, it's kind of a weird card. I could actually see this just being a kind of a workhorse card for the white decks. Yeah, I think it's mostly a synergy card, though. I would give this a synergy C.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll try it synergy C.
Sweet.
Next is Parish Blade Trainee. This is 1 and a white for a 1/2 human soldier with training. And it says when Parish Blade Trainee dies, put its counters on target creature you control. Holy cow.
Where have I seen that text before? On a certain star pupil.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sure, but like
This is better than that,
this
I
is
think.
definitely better than Star
Yeah.
Pupil.
Yeah. So it's a little bit awkward because your 2-drop probably won't be able to attack profitably on turn 2, which is what you want in your aggressive decks.
On turn 3.
But, sorry, on turn 3, my bad, yeah. Well, you'd like it to be attacking on turn 2, but
Sure.
yeah, I think that maybe the way green-white plays out is similar to kind of like it was in the last set where, you had your good curve-out draws, but sometimes you just like, stayed back a little bit, developed your board, wait till your coven turned on until you have the tricks that got you through. Your 3/1s became pseudo unblockable, and then you kind of turned the corner, right? So maybe green white plays out in a way like that, where it's like, okay, you build out your board, then you get your train kind of rolling. I like it. I like this card if that's the case. But I think maybe in like a red white deck where you really want to be attacking all the time, this falls off a little bit where your 2-power creature doesn't attack for 2 on turn 3. So powerful. I think it doesn't take a lot for this card to get going, essentially. And when it does, you put it on the token on your counter on your flyer or whatever, and it's kind of nice.
Yeah. So what do you want to give it?
Yeah, this one's an interesting one. I could see this going either way. I'm gonna start this at a C. I could definitely see it just completely being like, oh, it just takes a little bit too much to get going. The numbers don't line up with the way that the games play out. Or it could just be like, yeah, this is just like the 2-drop you want. So kind of a cop out a little bit, but I'm gonna give it a C.
Yep.
Sweet. Next up, Sanctify. It's a pretty easy one for us to talk about here. 1 and a white, sorcery, destroy target artifact or enchantment. You gain 3 life.
Sideboard, baby.
Send to the sideboard, baby. Easy.
Yeah. So that just means you are never playing this card because you don't play best of 3 anymore.
Me? Yeah, I mean, well, gotta keep it in mind for the arena opens and such, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Vampire Slayer is next. 1 and a white for a 2/2 human soldier. When Vampire Slayer deals damage to a vampire, destroy that creature.
Okay, like filler 2-drop. Essentially,
yeah, this is like
it's gonna come up sometimes, but a lot of times this thing's gonna be able to trade with most of the cheap vampires anyways. Right. It's gonna be like the rare killer or whatever, and some of them have flying, so it's kind of funny too. But probably like a
D+,
C-, D+ level card. Yeah, I'd give it a D+. There's probably just gonna be better cheap things. This is the 2-drop you pick up when you don't have you didn't pick up 2-drops in pack 1 and 2.
Yeah, that's as close to my. If I was designing this set, I would have designed Clove of Garlic or whatever, Garlic Necklace.
Oh yeah, it kills the
as the silver bolt Ethan. As the silver bolt of the set. I just think it's great. So that's our best attempt. This is your 2-drop of choice here. Drogskull Infantry, 1 and a white for a 2/2 Spirit Soldier with Disturb, 3 and a white. Comes back as Drogskull Armaments, which is an enchantment aura. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2.
Oh, love this card.
Yeah,
this is such. I've said this quite a few times over this this podcast, but just like such a nice little package of a card, right? Just this like 2/2, trade it off, gets in. Your opponent doesn't really want to block it. They'll be kind of like, all right, I guess I'll trade it off because you have this thing just sitting in the graveyard that you can put on your flyer or put on a lifelink or put on an unblockable creature of some sort. I mean, even just like a big ground creature that's like, all right, well, this thing didn't have attacks, now it does because this free value I got out of my graveyard.
Yeah, I think this card's great, and I'm going to give it a C+.
I'm going to go B- on this one.
Wowie.
Yeah, I'm a big fan.
Do you think this is... So you think this is better than Bait Hook Angler?
I think it's similar but different, right? Like, it's similar power level, but it's kind of a different card.
Yeah, and in a different set.
Whereas Bait Hook Angler was really good at, like, making your opponent not attack into you and being like, well, I don't really want to trade that off, or them being pretty reluctant to. It plays in a similar space, but this one you're going to be attacking with, and the backside attacks pretty well.
Yeah.
All right, up next we've got Griff Rider. So this is 2 and a white for a 2/1 flying with training.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thumbs up.
Yeah, I'm pretty into this.
I'm into this. Like we said, it doesn't take much to make a 2-power 3-mana flyer good. And I think this is that not much.
Seems very bread and buttery. Almost has what was that card? Oh man, from original Theros, Wingsteed Rider or whatever.
Oh my god, heroic. That card was disgusting.
Yeah,
the heroic +1/+1 counter. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not quite that, I don't think, but it's got vibes of that. This thing can attack for 3 on turn 5 a lot of the time, then get bigger past that. Yeah, I think this was quite good too. I would give this one a C+.
Yeah, I like that too.
Sweet.
Next up is Militia Rallier. This is 2 and a white for a 3/3. Hold on, I just lost my Drogskull infantry grade. Okay, 2 and white for a 3/3 human soldier. It can't attack alone, and when it attacks, you can untap target creature. Not can, you must untap target creature. So at least this has vigilance, right?
No options. Yeah. It can block alone, which is meaningful for your like when you're on the draw, when you're like, all right, well here's my 3/3, can't attack, but this is my first play of the game. You don't just get run over because your thing can't block. I think this is mostly like if I had to have no text on this card, or just like a 3-mana 3/3, or all the text, I think it's an upside, not a downside.
Oh, if it was just a 3-mana 3/3 versus with this text?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true. Because I think even if you are attacking with this something else, you untap that something else, they trade off with this. Mm-hmm. Just that like one turn of vigilance can really swing a race in your favor.
Yes, exactly. And it's those like subtle things that make a card go from like C to C plus a lot of times. Like exactly what you just said. Also the fact that this comes down on turn 3 and blocks their 2. It's a very big distinction between a 3/3 for 3 and a 3/2, right? Yes. That changes the math on the racing and all that in a way that it's very very hard to see just by looking at the card. But when you play at the games, that's what you'll really feel it when your opponent plays this on turn 3. You're like, darn it, rather than a 3/2. So I think this card's super solid. That being said, I think it's still just a C. But
yeah.
I
like a C here.
Sweet.
Next. Here we go. Sagarta's Imprisonment. 2 and a white for an aura. Enchanted creature can't attack or block. And you can pay 4 and a white to exile enchanted creature and make a blood token.
Kind of a sick joke in a set with exploits, right? Just like here's your pacifism yet again. So yeah, I think we'll try our best not to rag on these effects too much. But I do think, just to set a baseline for anybody who hasn't heard you, me, Ben, Ethan, Sam Black, everybody who's kind of on the same wavelength, it's just the baseline for these type of cards. The enchantment removal spells are these days, I think they are not so great. They get punished a lot of ways. They're a little bit clunky. They're punished by bounce, sacrifice effects. There's a mechanic that sacrifices things in this set. That being said, not a 0, right? It's not, Candle Trap. I know you like Candle Trap at the end of the format. I even can him up on Candle Trap a little bit at the end of the format. And this does give you a decent payoff, right? Getting the thing off the battlefield matters, mind you. It's 5 mana. That's a lot. Making a blood token matters too, right? So this does pay you off for the risk you're taking by putting like an enchantment-based removal spell in your deck. What's your take on this card?
Yeah, like Candle Trap impressed me more than I thought it would. I do think the existence of Exploit in this set does make this card quite a bit worse. Mm-hmm. That said, it does like I think like one copy of this, or maybe even 1 to 2 copies of this in a white deck is not going to be embarrassing.
Yeah, I agree.
Like that's my feeling. Like I don't know, that's like a C or a C minus. It's not it's not a high grade or anything. But if I look at a deck with Sagarta's Imprisonment, I'm not going to be like, wow, what happened?
Yeah, like you drafted this junker. Like,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And if I'm talking up, making an argument on the other side, talking up the good things about this card, there is, like I said, that slight enchantment theme in this set.
Right.
So you can trigger your stuff like that. All in all, I'm going to give this it sounds kind of funny saying optimistic C, but optimistic C because I think it's going to be a fine card. Nothing special though.
Yeah, I think I'm actually going to grade it a little lower. I'm going to give it a C minus, but
okay.
But I just because I am the thing about Candle Trap that eventually made me go like this is actually can be good, mm-hmm. is I just stopped thinking about it as like a 1 and a 2 or 1 and a 3 activation. And I was just like, it's just 4 mana exile at sorcery speed.
Right.
That's just how I want to think about it. And like you need Coven, but like that was fairly incidental anyway. So this is a bit more, though, a pacifism for a few turns and then you get an exile later or whatever. But 8 mana is a lot more than 4, blah, blah, blah. So, I don't know. Right now this looks a little worse to me than Candle Trap, but definitely could play out better.
All right. Next up, a card I do like. We've got Kindly Ancestor. This is 2 and a white for a 2/3 lifelink with Disturbed. 2 mana for Disturbed. The backside is an aura that grants lifelink.
This is a good card.
Oh, yeah. I think this is quite a good card. So, just I guess the spiel that we haven't quite gone on, we've kind of referenced it, is that one of the more underrated things in Limited in the past year or so, I think, from people eventually realized, these cards are quite good, is Incidental Lifelink, or Incidental Life Gain, Lifelink in particular, right? Just very powerful to say, hey, you're beating me down. I have this lifelinker that can really, stymie your aggression. Or I'm beating you down. That means you can't race me as well. And it's just powerful in a very subtle way. The fact that this is a 2/3 that then grants lifelink to something else, maybe a big flyer or a small flyer, just even a 2-power flyer giving that lifelink, quite good. I think that one of the things that this is actually a pretty good card to talk about as far as Disturb goes. It kind of plays like Disturb in this set, I think, kind of plays a little bit like Mutate, in the sense where you have these cards that are giving abilities to, whatever you want to put the auras on, but they also, on a baseline, have the ability, right? So it's like, this is a lifelinker that you can put a flying aura and a +1 aura and whatever on, or it goes the other way around. You give your big creature that you give lifelink to, or whatever. So these, all these Disturb creatures with abilities, or anything with an ability, inherently has value because you can put an aura on it and augment whatever you're doing, right? You're adding, it's kind of additive in that way.
I mean, this playing with the 1/1 flyer that gives +1/+1 and flying, like,
exactly.
Great. So this can be a 3/4 flying lifelink, or the other thing can be a 1/1 flying lifelink. Like, yeah, they do. They really just play great together. Are you going?
Yeah.
You're not going B- on me, are you?
Oh, I'm going B-.
Oh my God! He went B-. He went full B-.
Yeah, even just slapping the 2+2+2 on this thing. Think about that.
I mean, what do you mean even? That's disgusting.
But that's just commons, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
it's great.
I'm into it.
Next up, we've got Estwald Shield Basher. 3 and a white for a 4/2 human soldier. When Estwald Shield Basher attacks, you may pay 1. If you do, it gains indestructible until end of turn. So this is your training enabler.
Yes, exactly. It trains
your high power creature that can attack pretty freely. But even just like, that's only 1. I'm like squinting. I'm like, is it 4? You have to pay 4. Pay 1. Nothing can block this.
It's gonna be your like curve topper after you've emptied your hand, because it's like, you don't want to do this on turn 5, because then, I mean, sometimes.
What do you mean? But, why not?
Well, no, sometimes you do. I'm just saying, like, the paying the 1 on turn 5 is not nothing, right? There's gonna be times you want to go like, oh, I'll play my 2, play my 3 before you sink, a mana into this. But maybe not. Maybe it's just hitting them for 4 is good enough. Like, I guess this isn't really a indictment on the card, because either way you can choose to do whatever.
Right.
It's gonna be good. Yeah, I think this card's solid. It's a 4-drop. You're not gonna have too much room for 4-drops, and the more good 4-drops there are, the worse this card gets. But it's solid. I think I'd give it a C.
Yeah, I wonder if only white green is interested in this. Like, I wonder if it's like a synergy C+, because I don't quite know.
Yeah.
But this feels like a really good way to enable you training creature than this.
Yeah, this is gonna be one of those like context how the games play out kind of thing, where we're like, oh, okay, I see how that works, and like that doesn't obstruct, make any intrusions on how I want to play out the rest of my turn, or it's like, it's like a little bit clunkier than I would have hoped. So
this could also just be impossible to block. Like, you just be like,
exactly, yeah.
All right, cool. They played this, and I'm dead.
That's totally in the range as well.
1 mana, 2 toughness removal. I guess, yeah, that sneaks in. You have a window to kill this before you pay the 1, but still, I think this card's good.
Yeah, it's not so bad. I mean, I doubt it's gonna be a super commonly played card.
Right.
But,
I'm gonna go synergy C+. You're going C?
Yeah. I think so.
Cool.
All right. Next up, we've got Heron of Hope. So it's 4 mana, 3 and a white for a 2/3 flyer. It says if you would gain life, you would gain that much +1 instead, and 2 mana, 1 and a white. Heron of Hope gains lifelink till end of turn.
Whoa, you usually don't see these kinds of, like, if you would gain more on a common.
Yeah, usually it's like a uncommon rare kind of effect.
A 4 mana 2, and we've seen a 4 mana 2/3 flyer that can gain lifelink before.
That was Theros, which, mind you, that was the aura set, but this is
an aura set
archetype, right?
But also like, that without an aura was so like,
decent, yeah.
Like, because you can still go activate, play a 3-drop, activate, play a 4-drop, and then you're just like draining for 2 every turn. I don't know.
Yeah, this is a nice glue common for both the life gain deck and the aura deck, right? This does good work in both. That being said, again, it's a 4-drop. We're talking up, we're saying all these nice things, but you're only gonna have so much room. I think both of these 4-drops you've seen are like perfectly serviceable. C plus. It might end up being that Pegasus ended up being quite good actually. It was probably like C plus B minus range by the end of the format. So I could see this one going either way. Do you want to start at C plus? I don't know.
I kind of do. If you gain that much +1. That just seems wild to me that you're gonna be able to like get multiples.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's kind of funny.
I don't know.
Okay. I mean, I'm gonna go C on this one, but
okay.
I could definitely see it coming up a little bit.
Next is Supernatural Rescue. 3 and a white for an aura. The spell has flash as long as you control a spirit. All the disturbed creatures are spirits. When you cast the spell, tap up to 2 target creatures you don't control. Enchanted creature you control. Enchanted creature gets +1/+2.
Weird card.
Yes.
Very strange card. So, the obvious thing is that it's a spirit, goes in the enchantment type deck. The actual effect, though, is... So, like, really helps in a race if you're, like, leave up mana, tap your 2 things down, even on, just maybe you've gone, like, cheap creatures. On turn 4, you do this. You add to your board still in, kind of a roundabout way. And then, later in the game, comes down, taps 2 things, and adds some power to the board. It's clunky, but... Yeah, I don't know. This one's I'm pretty unsure about. What do you think?
I mean, it's like Guiding Voice. It's like a study break into expanded anatomy or whatever.
Right. Yeah, all in one card.
I'm kind of out on this. Like, you're gonna die to this some amount of the time when it's cast.
Yeah.
But then other times it's just gonna feel like it does nothing.
Yeah, my gut says it's just slightly too clunky.
Yeah.
But I mean, this the obviously the thing we say all the time, if you have more instants, this plays well with more instants, and maybe the blue-white deck kind of plays in that space a little bit. I'm going to start pretty low on this, but kind of what I'm earmarking as could be a little bit better than it looks. So I'll start like a D+.
Yeah, I'm going to go D for now, but yeah, you're right. Like, this is the kind of card that, like, I don't generally want to cast, but I should keep my eye out, like, in the first week. It's like, am I dying to this a lot or whatever,
Yeah, totally. All right, next up we've got Heron Blessed Geist. This is 4 and a white for a 3/3 flyer. Has a 4 mana activated ability, 3 and a white. Exile Heron Blessed Geist from your grave. Create 2 1/1 spirit creature tokens with flying. Activate this ability only if you control an enchantment and only as a sorcery. Got some riders there.
Those are some riders. Whatever.
I'm into it. Like, yeah, it's
still like a CC minus. Like, this card doesn't matter that much.
Well, so there was the I don't know if you remember these, but there was the kind of cycle of cards in Shadows of Innistrad that was similar to this, where it had these abilities where you can exile it from your graveyard to get some spirits, and those cards were really, really quite good. They were cheaper, mind you. It was like a 4 mana and a 3 mana card, but very similar to that. I think having an enchantment, it's not going to be like super trivial, but it's also not like a rare thing, right? Like in your white decks, I think enchantments are going to be, you're going to have all of your disturbed creatures plus whatever auras you have generally. So I don't think that's going to be like too much of a limiting factor. So if you just evaluate it as like, take that line of text off for the most part, I think it's pretty good.
I guess the upside of there's just not that much to do in terms of, I guess white doesn't really self-mill, but with blood token, like this is very good with blood tokens.
It's good with blood tokens. There's also blue has some ways to just like discard cards, like kind of looting. I'm kind of into it. I mean, I don't think I'm going to give it a high grade. I think it's comparable to your average 5 mana flyer, maybe a little bit better. But I'm happy to give it a C instead of like your C minus that you usually do.
Yeah, all right, I'm in for C.
Sweet. All right, next one. This is a weird one. Nibblegast Beguiler. This is a 4 and a white for a 2/5 spirit. It's got 1 white mana, single white mana, tap target creature. It's a 5 mana big butt tapper.
This doesn't make any sense.
That doesn't make any sense to me either. So like, I guess it comes down, it stabilizes you sort of. It's a big blocker, and then it stabilizes you further because you can tap down their most important creature.
Their creature that you can't block with your 2/5.
Yeah, I mean they're fire. Right? It essentially has reach for a mana. I don't know. It's a weird card. I don't think this card's very good. I'm gonna probably give it a D.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a D too.
Very strange card.
No, thank you. All right, what's our first uncommon here?
Oh, I gotta grab it.
Allenbach Escort is a single white for a 1/1 human cleric with vigilance. And you can sack it to have target creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it, gain lifelink, and indestructible until end of turn.
kind of cool. These effects are usually pretty good. Obviously there's some, you gotta have a target for it, but I think that's gonna be pretty easy to do. And it's like a, cheap creature with a keyword, like we were mentioning. It's pretty good when you have all those disturbed things running around, putting auras on your keyword or creature. Lifeline's also nothing too. I think this it's got some restrictions that something like Selfless Savior that we've seen in previous sets, or the dog from RNA didn't have. But I think that, like, as a cheap creature that attacks early, has a keyword, and has meaningful bonus for the creature it's targeting, I like this card quite a bit.
Yeah, this is gonna be, I think, our first big disagreement. I really don't like this card. I think.
Oh, really?
I think a creature like a creature with a +1/+1 counter on it is not going to be trivial. I think it's so. And a 1-mana 1/1 vigilance is not a good card. I reckon, like, the argument of you're going to have auras floating around doesn't really hold water with me, because you're going to also have creatures that have disturb that are going to be around that you would much rather enchant than something like this. I don't think, like, I agree that effects like this we've seen before, maybe a Dauntless Bodyguard or whatever, these 1-mana creatures that can protect the dog from RNA. This seems worse to me than that by a bit.
Yeah, maybe I am overrating overestimating how many counters you're going to be seeing in your creatures. So if you have this in a deck that has, the ability to put, 10 cards that either put counters on themselves or each other things, are you into that, Ben?
Not really, because a lot of the creatures that have +1/+1 counters on them don't come into play with them. Like, they've got to tussle. Now, I guess this, like, protects them once they've got to attack to get their training counters or whatever. But, like, I just, again, this feels like all the parts don't add up to a card, to what feels like something that is worth a piece of cardboard in your deck.
All right. Yeah, that's fair enough. I think the, like, cheap human or cheap creature, cheap white creature with a kind of a, doesn't even have to be this indestructible effect.
Yeah, Alex, you love white 1-drops.
I know.
We all know. No one.
John, but all I'm saying is these utility cheap creatures that attack for some points, then do something later, they're usually pretty decent. Okay, so where do you want to grade it?
I'm gonna give it a D.
I'm gonna start this. Sorry?
I'm giving it a D.
A D?
A D. I think I will be happy if I never put this in a deck in the entire format.
Wow. Okay, that is a take. I think that that is a stance. I respect the how much you stand by that.
Or maybe the deck comes together 1 in 50 times where I'm like, oh, this is finally the Allenbach escort deck. I don't know, but, like, this is not a good Magic card.
Man, okay, maybe I'm way off in this. I'm gonna give this one a C to start out with.
C.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
All right, next up, we've got Radiant Grace. So this is a single white mana for an enchantment aura. Enchanted creature gets +1/+0 and has vigilance. And then when enchanted creature dies, you return Radiant Grace to the battlefield, transform under your control, attached to target opponent. So turn comes back as a curse. And it says, creatures enchanted player controls enters the battlefield tapped. So it's like this small benefit aura, +1/+0 and vigilance is, not great. And it comes back with an effect that's actually pretty good. This effect is a little more punishing than it might seem, especially if you're playing a white aggro deck, your opponent's creature is coming in tapped, they're big 5-drops, can't block the turn they come down, is actually pretty meaningful.
But is it meaningful? But, like, so you would never play this card.
The front side.
No, the back side. I'm saying the back side. You would never play.
Too bad.
But the backside you would play as a card if it was a one white or a what if it was a single white enchantment that said that?
Don't think so, right? We was like consulates, whatever, the Kaladesh card, like, that's not so good. I don't think it's fantastic, but I'm just saying that, like, that effect is a little bit better than it looks potentially. If you look at it and you're like, I don't know how good that is.
Right.
How much do I like that as the whole package? I think reasonably enough. I think the small aura is kind of nice and, like, helps your small creatures trade up, gets in for a few points in the fire. I'm gonna say this again. This is the enchantment theme. All in all, I don't love this card. I think it's just fine. I think I'm gonna give it like a C-.
I'm again out on this card.
On this card?
I don't like this. This doesn't feel. Maybe I'm missing the aura synergy life that exists here.
Yeah, these cards that I'm kind of talking up are going to definitely get worse if, like, white aggro isn't a good thing to do in this format, and then they're going to be a little bit better if it is. So remains to be seen. Could be on either end of the
spectrum. But isn't white? But, like, white aggro doesn't need these cards to be good, I don't think. I think white aggro already looks good. When like
it just
when
all
your
adds
creatures die into auras, that's great.
It all adds up, I think.
Okay.
We'll see. Yeah, you might be right. That's actually a fair point. That like maybe you don't need to put the auras in your deck in the first place because your creatures are already those,
Yeah.
So yeah. I'm gonna stick with C-, but
Okay. Next up is Bride's Gown. 1 and a white for an equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0. It gets an additional +0/+2 and has first strike as long as an equipment named Groom's Finery is attached to a creature you control, and it has an equip cost of 2.
So just to fill everybody in on the joke, we don't have to no waiting for the other side of this. The other side is a black version of this. It's 1 and a black, same effect, but if you have both of them, the creatures get Death Touch.
Yeah.
So you combo them together. You got a creature that gets +2/+2 and Death Touch first strike. You got a large-ish creature.
It would get +4/+4 if you had
both.
both.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's +4/+4. My bad. You get a large-ish creature, a pretty large creature that can't be killed in combat essentially because first strike and Death Touch.
Yeah, because +4/+4 needs is Death Touch and first strike. I'm out.
Yeah, I'm out on this too because the base rate on these cards, like the 2 on the front end, 2 to equip, you have +2, is just too bad. That's just like not a good rate for your equipment.
Very bad.
And so then like you're putting these 2 cards in your deck that are not very good, and when they come together, it's like I did it, and it's still not that great. So I think I'm just gonna give this one like a not an F maybe, but D-.
Just give a card an F for once in your life,
I can't.
Alex.
I can never. Ethan, I can't hurt the card's feelings. You know that
That's
about
fair.
me.
All right, I'll go D- with you.
All right, cool. Next up, we've got Circle of Confinement. 1 and a white for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you exile target creature an opponent controls with mana value 3 or less until Circle of Confinement leaves the battlefield. Whenever an opponent casts a vampire spell with the same name as a card exiled with Circle, you gain 2 life.
Okay, so that last bit of text is not relevant for us.
Yeah.
So a 2 mana exile of 3 MV or less thing.
Yeah, we've seen these cards before, and they've been fine. Like
That's good.
they're like solid playables, but
not
yeah,
like,
I'd give
not
it
a pull
C+.
into white, but
yeah, not a pull, but like a fine card to pick up in the middle of the pack.
Yeah, Glass Casket, exactly. Dawn Hart Geist is next. 1 and a white for a 1/3 Spirit Warlock. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you gain 2 life.
Kinda into this.
I mean, you don't have to sell me.
This is gonna gain you a lot of life in the right deck, right? Like,
Yeah.
obviously, it's a bit of a build around, pseudo build around because a lot of your white decks are gonna be doing this anyways. But man, if you get this and you have like let's say 4, 5, 6 disturbed creatures in your deck, maybe even one more than another enchantment, you gain 4 or 5 life or 4 or 6 life off this. That's pretty powerful.
I mean, this just like one of the reasons that Blessed Defiance was Bone Splinters is that, or better than Bone Splinters, was because it gained you like 3 to 4 life. Which it's just like that deck was already really hard to race, and then once you once any amount of life was gained, like 4 or 8, and you're just like, it's just impossible for you to beat me. This might just do the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's on a not so great body, but like
Right.
it's a serviceable body. Like it's kind of the same thing as like we were talking about with the 3-mana 2/2 flyers. Like 1/3 is not a great stat line for 2, but it doesn't take all that much cool ability for me to be kind of interested. So yeah, I'm optimistic about this card. I think it's actually pretty good. I would give this one probably around a B- in the right deck.
It's like a Synergy B- for you?
Yeah, Synergy B-.
Yeah, I'm going to go Synergy C+. I like this card quite a bit.
Cool. Next up, we've got Fleeting Spirit. So this is 1 and a white for a 3/1 Spirit. Has an activated ability, single white mana, exile 3 cards from your graveyard. Fleeting Spirit gains first strike until end of turn. Has another ability, discard a card, exile Fleeting Spirit, return to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step.
So like the second half has sort of some Benslayer Angel feels to
Hallowed
it.
Blade.
Yeah. The first ability has like some anti-synergy with disturb a little bit, because you don't probably cards you don't want to exile. This is a good aggressive card. This also is like there's no caracols or whatever. There's no 2 mana 3/1s at common for training purposes, I assume. And so the fact that this is as a 2 mana 3 power thing for your training creatures or trainees is also quite good. I think this all adds up to a good card.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worse than its predecessors,
sure.
like Adonto Vanguard and Season Hallow Blade, but it's still a reasonable version of that kind of card, right? It's not going to be able to attack all that well in the early game, but in the mid game, I think it's easy to get 3 cards in the graveyard. Then discarding a card is not going to come up that much, honestly.
Right, because it's not the same thing as like discard a card to give it indestructible.
Yeah,
exactly. There's no threat of activation here.
Right, exactly. If they go to kill this, you're probably like, all right, like my 3/1 wasn't doing that much. I mean, there's gonna be times when you're like, I'll save it because your opponent's behind on board, and you go, well, I would really like this 3/1 still. But it's not all that relevant. So overall, I think it's just like a C+ level card.
Yeah, that seems fair to me.
Sweet.
Next, we got a reprint here, Valorous Stance. This is 1 and a white. For an instant, choose 1 target creature gains indestructible until end of turn, or destroy target creature with toughness 4 or greater.
So I think this card reads a lot better than it actually is. It's a fine card.
That's a take right there.
Oh really? You're a fan of this, eh?
Yeah, I'm a fan of. I like this better than a 1/1 Vigilant for 1. I'll tell you that right now.
Okay, so basically the destroy target creature with power with toughness 4 or greater comes up some amount of the time, and like it's nice to.
Gonna come up a lot more in this set too.
So then the thing I can say that's nice about this is, you don't often put that Singold Barrage or whatever in your deck because it's too narrow, and when it's bad, it's bad. But this does have the buyout clause of being indestructible, right? Or like giving something indestructible. That being said, sometimes giving something indestructible like isn't the end all be all, and you're like, okay, well, I'd really like my creature to attack. They have a large creature, I'd like to attack into it, and indestructible doesn't actually help me win the combat. I'm not trying to say this is a bad card by any means, right? This is a good card. It's just not like. It's not the nuts. I'm going to give this like a C.
Yeah, that's a take, I think.
Okay.
But destroy a thing with toughness 4 or greater is better in this set than it's going to be on the average set.
Because of reasons?
You mean I need to give you the reasons?
Yeah. I'm just,
because of butts and training. That like there are more high toughness, lower power creatures in this set than in an average set.
Yeah, I can buy that. I still don't think that's like all that much of an argument for the card. I'm still not that much more excited about it, essentially.
Yeah, I think I'm in for, I don't know, I'm gonna probably go like B- on this.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I just remember not being that impressed with it the last time, and just like coming into terms was like, oh, like neither mode is all that exciting, and the modality makes up for it some part, but not to the level where I'm like, I'm snapped, first, second, third picking this.
Okay.
Yeah. What's up next?
Twinblade Geist, 1 and a white for a 1/1 double strike with Disturb, 2 and a white, and it grants enchanted creature double strike.
Yeah, so you've got a fencing ace on the front side, battle master on the back. All together adds up to a pretty decent card. It's like essentially a 2/1 sort of first strike, and like this is another one that's really good to suit up with your other auras.
Yeah, this is like, I mean, it's plays great with lifelink and flying and all that. Just yes, please. I think this card is great. I think this is like a B.
Yeah, a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get some B-.
I'm gonna go B.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I'll go B-.
B- for you. Okay. I don't know why I can't tab over in this stupid document. Thanks, Excel. You're awesome. Okay, what's up next?
Next up, we got Panicked Bystander. So this is 1 and a white for a 2/2 human peasant. When Panicked Bystander or another creature you control dies, you gain a life. At the beginning of your end step, if you gain 3 or more life this turn, transform Panicked Bystander. Transforms into Cackling Culprit. It's a 3/5, so it's quite a bit bigger. And it says whenever Cackling Culprit or another creature dies, you gain a life, so it's the same as the front. And until 1 in black, the culprit gains Death Touch until end of turn.
Holy cow. That's a big boy. Sorry. Apologies to our listeners here on Twitch and on YouTube and on the podcast that I keep having the like Windows error ding happen. We'll fix that after this review. Yeah, I like this card. This seems good to me. Like 2 mana 2/2, fine. And then I think in a black-white deck, I think you'll be able to set up a turn where you can gain 3 life, like not where 3 things have to die.
Mm-hmm.
And then flipping to a 3/5 is quite large.
Yeah, quite large. I think the 3 life is, well, I was gonna say it's not trivial, but there will be decks where it is kind of trivial. You got like a 2-power life linker, and
So you got your 4-mana 2/3 flyer that gains an additional life. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that
so
connects
sometimes
once.
It will just be like,
you gain 3.
yeah, that thing's gonna flip right away. Yeah, in the deck where this can flip like on turn 3-4 because you have the right cards, that's just like a massive beating. Like a 3/5 that can threat of activation gain death touch is really nice. And then we saw this effect in the last set with the backside of Lunarch Veteran, right? Where when something dies, that was when it leaves, I suppose. But when something dies, you gain life, and that's also not nothing, right? That's like a little nice little bonus on a lot of your creatures. Makes trading and combat a little bit tougher if your opponent's trying to be aggressive. What do you want to give this one? I think I'm gonna go C+ on this one, but I could be talked up.
Yeah, I feel like this is basically a synergy card in my mind.
Yeah, I think so.
Like in an average deck, I think this is fine. This is like whatever. But in a black-white deck, I think this is like a synergy B-.
Yeah,
maybe,
I think I'd
maybe
go
even synergy B.
well. And it's just like a fine card in your other. Sometimes you can set up situations where, like, your white decks are going to have some amount of life gain in them, right? They're just going to have some amount of life link, or when this creature enters, you gain 2 or gain 1 or whatever it is, right? So even if your deck isn't explicitly a life gain deck, there's going to be, a good amount of times that you're going to be able to flip this thing.
Right. What's next here?
We got Arm the Cathars. It's a sorcery, 1 white. Until end of turn, target creature gets +3/+3. Up to 1 other target creature gets +2/+2. Up to one other target creature gets +1/+1. Those creatures gain vigilance until end of turn. So it's like this massive pump spell that's sorcery speed essentially. So I guess the idea here is you're pumping up your training creatures, or like making it so that you're growing all of your training creatures still. It's like a weird variant on Inspired Charge essentially. So like it's better for. It's like an Inspired Charge that works on creatures that are going tall rather than going wide, right? It's a lot of stats for a single card. Yeah, it's only a temporary boost, but that's going to be, you're attacking for a lot.
It's so funny this costs 3 because like it might as well cost 6. Like it doesn't really matter. I don't know. I do not like Inspired Charge effects very much.
That's where you and me differ, my friend.
I know. So
I'm kind of into this.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think it's a lot of damage for 3 mana, and you're gonna get some of it's gonna stick around because of training.
Yes, that's fair.
And again, we've seen a lot of keywords on these cheap creatures because of Disturb too.
So what do you want to give it? I put the floor to you, my friend.
Yeah, sure. I think I'm still just gonna give it a C, but it's a solid role player in the way aggressive decks.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. All right, next up is Resistance Squad. Here's your party captain. This is 2 and a white for a 3/2. When it enters the battlefield, if you control another human, draw a card.
Yeah, so the conversation you and Ben were having is better or worse than Search Party Captain?
I think at the end I'd say worse.
Yeah, I think it's different.
Sure, as much. I don't like comparing cards across sets. I find that to be fairly fruitless. But I was like, this seems cool. And then he was like, what about Search Party Captain? I was like, oh, that's right. Like,
oh no.
The hoops are you have to jump through more hoops for this.
So the cool thing about this is that Search Party Captain didn't always trade for a card, right? Where it's always like, okay, well, the 2/2 can't really attack, or sometimes it's chumps eventually. This is going to trade for a card a lot more often. Now you're going to draw a card a little more often as a
little less often.
Oh, sorry, less often as a trade-off there. But like I was saying, it's a bit of a different card. So in a deck where you've got a lot of 2-drop and 1-drop humans, card's gonna be really quite good, right? It's gonna be better than Search Party Captain there. But you have to take that into consideration in the draft and deck build, of course. And in a deck with 5 humans, you're not gonna want this card. You're probably just not gonna play it. So it's got like kind of like a synergy build around-ish aspect to it. The upside of it, if you do, I'm assuming I'm gonna be playing this in a deck that can fulfill the requirement fairly often. I think that's like a a B- elf card.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go a little lower on and just say C+.
Yep, that's fine.
Just to like split the difference a little bit, but yeah, I like it.
Totally fair. Next up, we've got Distracting Geist. So this is 2 and a white, 3 mana for a 2/1 spirit, and it says whenever Distracting Geist attacks, tap target creature defending player controls, and it's got Disturb for 5 mana. The aura that is on the backside is you enchant the creature, and it has, whenever this creature attacks, tap target creature defending player controls.
Yeah, that's a good effect.
Yeah, so it's got, for those who've been around long enough, for Ixalan, kind of territorial hammer skull vibes. A lot worse because 2/1 trades a lot easier than a 2/3 does. But the bonus you get is that it comes back eventually.
Yeah.
I think this card's good. I don't think it's premium, but it's a solid card.
It's scary.
Yeah, scary. Yeah, definitely one of those cards that punishes you for being on the draw or stumbling a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Or just yeah. Yeah, I like this card. I mean, I don't know if it's quite B- territory for me, but I definitely think it's a C+.
Yeah, I'll go C+ on this one.
All right, next up is Griffwing Cavalry. It says 3 and a white for a 2/2 flyer with training. Whenever Griffwing Cavalry attacks, you may pay 1 and a white. If you do, target attacking creature without flying gains flying until end of turn. Hello.
Cool. Yeah, this is awesome. It's a little bit small to start, but so are all the training creatures for the most part. And yeah, such a beating if your opponent's at all trying to stabilize. If they're racing you, this isn't as good because it comes down pretty small. It can't block the turn it comes down very much. And then it takes some mana to actually get this going. But if you've got the advantage of the board advantage and you're the one being down in the play, this thing's really, really hard to race, right? Or like stabilize against it all. So, the fact that it's still fine on defense if you're like in that racing situation, it's not a blank for sure, and it's like so good when you're ahead, makes me want to say this is like a B-.
I agree with all that. This card seems good. Folks are saying like, oh, it feels like it costs too much. Do you have any idea how insane this would be if this was a 3-mana 2/2 flyer with all of this?
Very, very good. Yeah,
this card would be really, really good. Yeah. What's our last uncommon here?
Last uncommon we got is Angelic Quartermaster. So this is 3 white for a 3/3 flyer, 5 mana. When the Quartermaster enters the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on up to 2 other target creatures.
So it's the Silversmith.
Yeah, it's a flying Silversmith, which I think, being a mana more but having more power and flying is generally a positive exchange, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I like this. It not only pushes damage the turn it comes into play, but it itself is an evasive threat that can close out the game. So all in all, I think that makes this a really good curve topper for white. Yeah, we know it can't.
It can't target itself like the Silversmith could, but that's okay because like a 3/3 flying body is pretty decent. Like a lot of the time the game plays out in a way where it's like, these 3/3 flying creatures are not so good because they don't clock that fast, these 5-mana 3/3 flying creatures, they don't clock so fast, and they can get picked off by some cheap removal. But like getting that value in and making your 2 and 3 and 4 attack that turn, getting a huge damage push in, definitely makes up for that. So yeah, I'm into this one.
It's unbelievable that people are like, it can't target itself. So sad. I'm like, then there just be a 5-mana 4/4 flyer, put a counter on something. Like, cards don't have to be the most insane versions of themselves.
The best version we've ever seen ever. Well, this is it's the classic. Well, it's worse than Organ Hoarder.
Right. So.
Yeah.
B+. What do you like?
I like B on this one.
Yeah. I'm in for B as well. It's gonna take us on to the white rares. Next up is Hopeful Initiate. Single white mana for a 1/2 human warlock with training. And you pay 2 and a white to remove 2+1/+1 counters from among creatures you control to destroy target artifact or enchantment.
Okay, so I mean, you're basically looking at a 2/3 most of the time when it attacks. It's in its first set. Well, it'll chip in some damage, but I'm mostly looking at this as like a 1/2 training. And that's kind of a nice stat line because it starts growing pretty quickly. Basically, anything trains it.
Yeah.
And it can scale to gain. You play your 2, you play your 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna grow. And then the second ability there, it's pretty much just like some incidental upside when that comes up.
Yeah. What do you?
Yeah, I'm into this for an aggressive 1-drop.
So I like it as like C+.
Yeah, I think C+ is a very solid grade for this.
Great.
All right, next up we've got Lantern Flare. Here's our second cleave card, Ethan. You ready?
Okay.
So this is a weird one. Okay, so it's 1 and a white for an instant. The cleave cost is X red white. And it says Lantern Flare deals X damage to target creature or planeswalker and you gain X life.
X is the number of creatures you control.
Okay, so really, like, I had to read this like 4 times before I understood what was happening. But essentially, if you just pay 1 and a white, it's an instant that deals... It's Kabira Takedown from Zendikar. So you deal damage equal to the number of creatures you control to target creature, you gain that much life, which is a really good removal spell. Like getting the you gain X life, that like upgrades it from, I mean, obviously that was an MDFC, but that's a really nice removal spell. Deal X, gain X. The cleave cost, it basically says I'm no longer relying, the X red white. I'm no longer relying on how many creatures you have. I just how much mana you want to sink into it. So you go, okay, I only have 2 creatures, but I want to kill that, that 4 toughness creature. I sink 6 mana into this thing. 4 to that, I gain 4.
Yeah.
Which is a good deal. Like, the front side of this is a very good deal, and like, you can play this in any white deck. It doesn't have to be a red-white deck by any means. In your red-white deck, you get a little more flexibility, but honestly, you're probably going to be casting it for the 1 in a white mode a lot more often than the...
Right, because by the time you have, 4 mana, 5, like, ideally you have a board.
Yeah.
So yeah. B?
I think this is like a B. I could even see this going into B plus territory. Like, you know me, I'm not super willing to give removal spells super high grades, but one that's super efficient and gains you life, I'm pretty into that. So I would go B here.
Yeah. She's back. Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, 1 and a white for a 2/1 legendary creature, human soldier with first strike. Non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast.
Yeah, so it's odd in a sense with Disturb, right? Because like with the enchantment aura Disturb, because all your Disturb creatures are going to come back and they're going to be more expensive on the backside, unfortunately. This is more of a constructed card than a limited card. She has a kind of a pedigree to her. Thalia does, as like a really good constructed card, but that's mostly in decks where you can have 17, or sorry, not 17, but 95% creatures in your deck. And not that many non-creatures where she doesn't affect you that much. And I think that's going to be kind of hard. It's just kind of hard and limited in general, and even harder in the set where you're going to want to be putting these good white disturbed creatures in your deck. So there's going to be matchups. Like if you're facing a blue-red deck, and you're the blue-red deck, you see a Thalia on turn 2, you're like, oh no. Like all my cheap cantripy spells are just going to be taxed, and that's just a nightmare. But just, be aware that you don't want to be picking this card highly if you've already got 7, 8 spells in your deck, because it does hurt you quite a bit.
Yeah. So yeah. I'd say C+, not a pull into white, but a good card.
Yeah, not a pull into white, but for the equity of this destroys people in certain matchups, I'd give it a C+.
Yeah.
All right, next up we've got a Voice of the Blessed. This is white for a 2/2. Whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on Voice of the Blessed. Is it blessed? We're having this conversation.
I know. Blessed Gate is over. We're moving on.
As long as Voice of the Blessed has 4 or more +1/+1 counters on it, it has Flying and Vigilance. As long as Voice of the Blessed has 10 or more +1/+1 counters on it, it has Indestructible. So our baseline here is you've got a harder to cast a Johnny's Pridemate in a set where life gain matters, which... that's good. Like, a Johnny's Pridemate's definitely a good card when it's supported. And then 4 counters is quite a bit, but, you can get there. So I think if you just, evaluate this as a Johnny's Pridemate that, a lot of times, sometimes with the Johnny's Pridemate, what happens is your opponent's like, well, that thing's getting so big that I can't ever hope to trade with it. I'm just going to resign to getting chump blocked. But that doesn't happen with this card because, it'll eventually gain flying. Nice little 2-drop. Not amazing, but it's solid.
Yeah, I think this is a good build around. This is I see this and I'm like, I want to do the life gain thing.
Yeah, a nice little synergy card for the life gain deck. So we want to give this a synergy B- potentially.
Yeah, I go build around B-.
Yeah. This is really nice if you have that white common 1-dropper that tap gain a life. So you just grow it on turn 2 and then every turn past that and it pumps this as well. So yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Yeah. Next up is Savior of Allenbach. This is 1 white for a 1/2 human soldier with training. Whenever Savior of Allenbach trains, exile up to 1 other target creature from the battlefield or creature card from a graveyard. And then when it leaves the battlefield, you put the exiled cards onto the battlefield under their owner's control. Wow.
Yeah.
So little...
Angel of Serenity?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a weird card. So whenever it trains, that means you have to attack. But holy, is this this is a snowball effect if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, this definitely just gets out of control, but also has the protection of just one of the things that you did with Angel of Serenity is all right, I'm gonna nab 1 creature in play from you and 2 creatures from my graveyard. So even if you kill this, I'm getting back my creatures.
Yeah, you could just have this be, I attack, I train, you eat Savior, but then I reanimate my creature.
Right.
Right? Like, you could just have this because kind of like a weird reanimation spell, essentially, if you really wanted to. But if you can, like, keep on going, keep training this and keep getting it in.
That said, a 3-mana 1/2...
It's hard.
is at white too is also like that's not a great stat.
Yeah, exactly. It's got some you got some work to do, essentially. Right? So it's got a lot of potential, but I think on average something like Brutal Cathar is better than this. Right? Cuz there's board states, you draw this on turn 12 or whatever, turn 10, has a hard time getting in a profitable attack and it's just going to die. That's what does default to its reanimation thing essentially. Right? So, I don't know. If you play this in turn 3 and you can keep it going and you have protection for it, maybe you're gonna win the game pretty much on the spot because they just won't be able to keep up with this keep training. But at the same time, it's fragile. All in all, it's kind of a modal flexible card that requires a little bit of work, but is very, very powerful if you get there.
Yeah. So what does that make it?
I think you got to give it like at least in the B range. I'm gonna go probably B plus here.
I'm gonna go B-.
Okay, that's fair.
I do think you got to do some work. Like once you draft this, you're like, all right, I need some Adamant Wheels. I need some. Like I think you got to do some work for it.
Yeah.
But it's very powerful.
Yeah. No, I'm on board with that. There's gonna be some games that just feel super super unfair. As from the opposite, your opponent plays this and you're like, oh my god, I can never beat that. And then there's going to be times you have it in your hand and you're like, this doesn't really do all that much. So, yeah.
Right.
All right. Next up, we've got Welcoming Vampire. This is 2 and a white for a 2/3 flyer. It's a vampire, of course. Whenever one or more other creatures with power 2 or less enter the battlefield under your control, you draw a card. This ability triggers only once a turn. So it's Mentor of the Meek, but it's a 2/3 flyer.
2/3 flyer instead of a 2/2.
And you don't have to pay. It only does it once per turn, but that's a good trade-off.
That's really powerful.
Yeah, this is sweet. It's just a good body and it draws you cards. Like if it ever survives. So yeah, I'm into this. I think it was like a B plus.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it an A-. Actually, yeah. I think this card's wildly good. Next is Faithbound Judge, 1 white for a 4/4 Spirit Soldier. It's a mythic. It has Defender, Flying, and Vigilance. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Faithbound Judge has 2 or fewer Judgment counters on it, put a Judgment counter on it. As long as Faithbound Judge has 3 or more Judgment counters on it, it can attack as though it didn't have Defender. So 3 mana 4/4 Flying, Vigilance, Defender, but then after 3 upkeeps, it can attack.
Yeah.
And then if it dies, it's got Disturb. So 5 white is the Disturb cost here, and it comes back as Sinner's Judgment, which is a curse on enchanted player. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a Judgment counter on Sinner's Judgment. Then, if there are 3 or more Judgment counters on it, enchanted player loses the game.
So, this is a really powerful card. So,
yes.
on its front side, it's almost like a Sarah Angel, 4/4 Flyer Vigilance, that has Suspend in a way it can't attack for a few turns, but it can block, which is actually quite good, right?
Yeah.
Like, this just attacks on turn 5. As the like a hasty Vigilance Flyer.
It's turn 6, right? Because it
it has 2. Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. So turn 6. That's still pretty good though.
Yeah, sure.
And it just blocks very well early on. It's kind of got that the same vibe as the blue-white rare we looked at, the 4/4 flyer, where it's just like, okay, well, this thing's gonna be tough to attack into, and it comes down really cheap. Even if you block, if your opponent attacks with their 2/2, they have a combat trick, they save their 2/2. Okay, that's fine. You slowed them down. They had to use their spell. This goes to the grave. And then it comes back as this like almost approach of the second sun like card, where it's like, all right, 7 mana. You've got a few turns to win, and if you can't, I just win. If I can just prolong the game a little bit longer.
Yep.
Susceptible to enchantment removal, of course, but that's still very, very powerful. Everything about this card adds up to a really good card.
This is an A.
Yeah, this is an A.
Yeah. This card's really good.
Yeah, really into this.
Shockingly, not the most egregious card in the set.
Speaking of really good cards, we've got Katilda, Hart, Martyrs. This is 1 white, so 3 mana for a star creature. It's a spirit, and it's got flying, lifelink, protection from vampires. It says Katilda's power and toughness are each equal to the number of permanents you control that are spirits or enchantments.
Okay.
Disturb, 3 white. transforms into an aura that has the same text, essentially. You know, gives the creature flying, lifelink, protection from vampires, and it's got +X, where X is the number of permanents you control or spirits in or enchantment. So baseline, very baseline, this is a 3-mana 1/1 lifelink flyer pro vampire. It's not a great card,
but then grants flying lifelink and +1/+1.
Yes, on the backside, right? Yeah. So, you know, I think that, you know, blue-white deck, or even just a white deck, it's not going to be that hard to have, you know, make this a 2/2 lifelink flyer, which is great. Like, upgrading from a 1/1 lifelink flyer to a 2/2 is a big jump, and then everything past that is obviously just gravy. Lifelink flyers are just fantastic cards in general. And then, when your opponent's like, all right, I kill it, you're like, all right, I'm going to bring this back, put it in my big creature. It's going to get flying and lifelink.
Right.
This is another very, very, very good, you know, white flip card here.
Yeah. Feels like, I mean, is it a build around? It's not really, because you'd probably just play it in any white deck.
Yeah. If you just had this as, like, this is the backside of 5 mana, you know, gives +1/+1, because it's going to get +1/+1 naturally. And lifelink and flying, that's like a decent card. Plus the front side obviously is, you know, can, even if it's not that big, it just like blocks a turn or something. So yeah, I'm in for an A on this one as well.
Yeah, that seems fair. Like it's like a B plus and then build around A or whatever, I think. Like if in a supported deck. But yeah, I think that seems fair to me. Next up is Wedding Announcement. 2 and a white for an enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, put an invitation counter on Wedding Announcement. If you attacked with 2 or more creatures this turn, draw a card. Otherwise, create a 1/1 white human creature token. Then if Wedding Announcement has 3 or more invitation counters on it, transform it. You got to send out more than 3 invitations for your wedding. And then the backside is Wedding Festivity, which is an enchantment. Creatures you control get +1/+1.
Yeah, sort of a weird card. But essentially what it's saying is, you know, if you're ahead and you're already attacking, that's cool, because you get to draw cards, get the card flow keeps going. If you're not ahead, you make a 1/1 right each turn for 3 turns, right? Which is not bad. You know, it's 3 mana enchantment and pumps out a 1/1 each turn. And then the backside, you know, it flips into an anthem, which you'd like your anthems to kind of come down immediately, but you know, it's kind of gravy on top of the front side there.
Yeah, I mean, the front side fuels the backside. It's just a good card.
Yeah, I think it's maybe a little bit finicky in game, where like, you know, you're not getting, you know, maybe if you're too far behind, it's like, all right, well, this 1/1 for 3 mana is not doing too much, but it's still, it's not nothing. I think it's just a powerful card overall. I'd probably give it about a B.
Yeah, I like that. I like B on this.
Sweet. All right, next up we've got Cemetery Protector. So this is the first in a mythic cycle. 2 white for a flash 3/4. When Cemetery Protector enters the battlefield, exile a card from a graveyard. Whenever you play a land or cast a spell, if it shared a card type with the exiled card, create a 1/1 human creature token. Yeah, full stop. And it's a 3/4 if I didn't mention that. So essentially you got a 3/4 flash, which just comes down to ambush.
4 mana 3/4 flash, I'm just good.
Yeah, that's just good. And then a lot of the time you're gonna want to exile, if you can, a land, because that just gives you, you know, landfall. Make a 1/1. That's probably gonna be the most common use for this. But you know, creature is probably not bad either. You're gonna get a few things off it. It works on either grave, so you can exile from your own grave or the opponent's. The tough thing is there's not often going to be a land in the graveyard. Your opponent's gonna have to, you know, you or your opponent's gonna have to self-milled. But a lot of times you're gonna come down, eat a creature, and then stick around and, you know, just pump out a few tokens over the course of a few turns. And it's graveyard hate too, just, you know, incidentally.
Yeah. A minus.
Yeah, it's like not super bombastic, over the top, flashy, but it's just like a card that does a lot of good things.
It's really hard for this not to be a good 2-for-1 plus.
I think so too. Yeah, I'm in for an A or A minus.
Hallowed Haunting is next. 2 white for an enchantment. As long as you control 7 or more enchantments, creatures you control have flying and vigilance. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, create a white spirit cleric creature token with this creature's power and toughness are each equal to the number of spirits you control.
Build around if I've ever seen one.
Yeah. It's a tough build around.
Yeah, so you've got to have the enchantments, which, you know, we've already...
But they're auras, so like...
Yep.
If your creature with a bunch of auras on it isn't dying, you're winning the game anyway.
Well, yeah, but this is like built-in protection for that, where it's like, all right, well, I'm doing the thing, and then it's additional value on top of that. I don't think it's nothing. I'm gonna invoke the, you know, the whole, it's not just only good when you're ahead, it helps you get further ahead, right? I think that this is kind of gives me Divine Visitation vibes in a way. You know, the one from Ravnica or Guilds of Ravnica. Whenever you make a token, it becomes a 4/4 instead. Where it's probably like more cool than good.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about this one?
I think I will like obviously pack one, pick one this and build around it.
Yeah.
If you're doing like 25 drafts of the format, I think you should just like never touch this card probably.
Yeah, I think it is a, if you really wanted to, I guess where I would come down on it is if you wanted to 3-0 or 7-0 your draft, 7 wins your draft, you probably shouldn't first pick this card. But if you wanted to do something that's like a little bit out there and like, you want to take a powerful card, maybe they're not the absolute most correct card, this would still be a good avenue to go down. You could still build a good deck around this. It's not just like this build around that doesn't actually lead you anywhere. It's going to be a good thing to do. But it is hard to actually get there, I think.
So what do you give it?
Like a build around C+, I'd say.
Sure.
It's a scary card. Like, imagine your opponent plays this on 4 and they have a Disturb card in their yard. Next turn they get, a 3 or 4 mana flyer. Maybe they do it again. Like, if this thing gives them 3 or 4 mana or 3 or 4 power worth of flying over the course of, a few turns. I don't know. This is a card that I could definitely see, like, dominating some game states. But it is finicky, so...
Yeah, but you're like, imagine my opponent, you play this on turn 4, and it's like, well, that's great for me, right? Because you just didn't do anything.
Totally.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of just want to be out on this card, but it's so hard to evaluate.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Yeah, good point, chat. Chat points that they don't have flying naturally. You have to get to the 7 enchantments, which I guess is a lot. So maybe I'm actually more out on this. I actually had it in my head this had flying in the first place. So yeah, a little more out on that then.
Do you want to lower your grade?
Yeah, I think so. Probably like build around C+ or something.
That's what you said, right? That's what you already said.
Oh, sorry, C-. My bad.
C-. But that's just not a build. That's not a good build around, right? Like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So then we're just talking about like an F, effectively.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I know you can't give Fs. I'm just going D, and I'll revise you to.
All right, yeah. I'm coming around to it's probably not good actually.
I think it's just not a good card.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay.
This next card though is pretty sweet. By invitation only. So this is 3 white for a sorcery. Choose any number between 0 and 13. Each player sacrifices that many creatures.
This card's phenomenal.
Yeah, amazing Wrath. Like so the the whole knock against Wrath is in your creature strategies where you have a lot of creatures. They're not so good because it's like, well, I'm devoting all these creatures to the board, and then I've drawn my Wrath, and it's like, oh, it doesn't do too much. It actually gets better if you're playing more creatures, right? If you have more creatures than your opponent, you just go, all right, like I have 9 creatures, you have 5. We sack 5. I keep my 4 best, you have nothing. And it doesn't even have to be that crazy. Like, think of the situation where you're like, you have 5, or you have 4, I have 5. We sack everything except my best thing.
Yeah,
that's all. Like, it's not even that crazy to think about.
Or your opponent has more creatures than you, and you just pick
Wrath. Yeah, like... exactly. This is a busted Wrath. I think this is an A, might even be A+.
Yep, I agree.
Yep.
Our last white card is Sagarta's Summons. 4 white for an enchantment. Creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them have base power and toughness 4/4, have flying, and are angels in addition to their other types. Here's your Divine Visitation.
Yeah, it's very similar to Divine Visitation. I don't know. This is gonna be the one where I'm gonna have to see how often we get counters on our creatures, right? It's gonna be more of a feel thing. If we do get to that like 11, 12 creatures or spells that put counters, it's a good card. It's like an overrun or stabilizes you or whatever.
Right. The really insane thing about this is like unlike Divine Visitation, which was like gotta take a turn off.
Yeah.
This just ends the game when you cast it sometimes.
Exactly. It's very similar to Overrun in the right deck, or
So they're creatures they become at least 5/5 flyers.
Yeah. I like somebody in chat says it's a split card. It's either 6 mana lose the game or 6 mana win the game.
Right.
I think this has potential. It's not it's your classic like you got to do some work, but it's definitely going to be a good card in some decks.
This feels worth building around to me.
Yeah, it is very close to Overrun, if not better. So I would give this, a build around B, probably.
Yeah, I like build around B as well. All right, sweet. That's going to do it for white.